how can you understand your competitors a little better? Let's assume the following situation. It's a Friday night and you decide to go out with one of your colleagues for a drink. You enter this bar and the only other guest is this beautiful young lady. Both of you would like to have a date with her. So we got here you and we have your colleague here. Both of you have the option of either ignoring her or buying her a drink. Now, if only you buy her a drink and your colleagues ignores her, then the chances that you will get a date with this beautiful young lady will be quite high. Let's assume you're a cool bloke, you get 80% of a chance. Your colleague doesn't really have any chance to get a date because he ignores her. And the same is true just the opposite way. If your colleague buys a drink and you ignore her, then your colleague will have a chance of 80% and you will have not really any chance to get a date with her. Now, if both of you ignore her, in fact, because you're the only other guest in this bar, the lady might still want to spend the evening with somebody, and you still have a 50-50 chance that one of you will score a date. Now, if both of you decide to buy a drink for her, you're starting to compete for her. And as a result of that, you will behave in a way that doesn't necessarily make the other look very good. As a result of that, the chances, in fact, compared to ignoring her, might be lower because the lady might be put off by the bad things that you say about the colleague of yours or the other way around. So your chances are decreasing today to say something like 30%. Unfortunately, this is also the most likely outcome because both of you are really interested in this lady. Both of you will start to compete for her. A common phenomenon also in business, where, for example, Pepsi and Coke are vying for the same customers and start to compete, for example, on price, with something that is not very good for their bottom line, but might be thrilling for the customers. So how can companies avoid such situations? Let's talk for a moment about the fashion industry. For the fashion industry, one of the most important nights is Oscar night. During Oscar night, the stars will wear their dresses and they'll get publicity, they'll be seen in the news, and they will have, therefore, advertising for their clothes. The problem is, of course, that the different fashion designers all want to get the same top stars and they're starting to compete for them, driving up the prices of the stars because you have to pay them something in order to wear your dress. So now, if possible, you try to avoid this competition. And there's 3 different things you can do. The first one is you can show some superior commitment. So, for example, one of the fashion designers might decide that in a particular year they will skip the annual fashion shows in Milan, in Paris and London and spend their entire budget on Oscar night. This is a commitment that probably none of the other designers is going to match, and therefore they might be deterred by competing for a particular star with you. The second thing you could do is you could send a particular signal. So, for example, you could make an announcement in the newspaper that you will get a particular star. Now it depends on how plausible this signal is, whether your competitors actually believe that you really will go for that. If it's plausible, then again they might be deterred because they don't want to end up spending a lot of money and just find out in the end that they can't get the star. And the final option is that you're trying to change this direct competition into more of a sequel game, where you will possibly pre-sign one of the stars. So having this pre-agreement It is in fact not really an option, at least not a very clever one, for any of your competitors to start bidding for that star you already have an agreement with. Now, these entire considerations about using game theory to understand your competitor has one big problem. It is based on rationality. And we all know that companies and individuals do not always behave rationally. So I think in addition to using this tool, you could also ask yourself 4 questions to understand your competitor a little better. The first one is, what is the strategy of your competitor? And your competitor might have a strategy which in fact will not even put you in competition with you on certain aspects. The second question you would like to ask yourself is, what are the main objectives of your competitor? And again, it's possible that he has objectives that do not really put you into direct competition. The third question you want to ask yourself is, what are the main assumptions on which your competitor bases decisions? And again, this might drive him into a direction different from what you yourself try to achieve. And finally, you will want to ask yourself, what are the resources and capabilities of your competitor? He might not have the appropriate resources and capabilities to compete on some of the aspects where you might actually be in opposition to each other. So bear these 4 questions in mind, in addition to using game theory to try and understand your competitors a little better.